What's up, everybody? Welcome to the CanesInSight Daily Podcast, powered by Anijar and Levine Accident Attorneys. We said there'd be a recruiting run. Now the crystal balls are starting to roll in, and these are for some top-of-the-board, big-time targets. Offensive line, the number one center in the nation, one of the top offensive line prospects in the nation, period. S.J. Alafatuli out of Bishop Gorman. Crystal ball to the Canes following his official visit. Huge news and huge momentum with a key prospect. Also, Herbert Scroggins, defensive end from Savannah. A lot of people thought he was going to Auburn, SEC bound. Miami receives multiple crystal balls, matches my information. And if you've been listening to this podcast, 3 months now, we've been saying Herbert Scroggins is a top of the board name that no one's talking about. Miami would love to close both these guys. Not done deals, but the momentum is real. We'll talk about that. Also, some new changes to the rules, NCAA rules regarding coaches who can coach on the field, the recruiting calendar. Weed is now back on the table for college athletes. It's a whole new era of college sports, and we will talk about that. First, I want to talk about some folks that have been on the map for a long time. That is Anijar and Levine Accident Attorneys. If you or someone you care about has been injured in an accident, you could be entitled to significant compensation. 1-800-747-FREE, 1-800-747-3733. Take back control of your life. They don't get paid until you get paid. Pete, jump in. You know, we've all been talking about the need for some more Polynesians on this team. Because, I mean, we got two last year. They more than lived up to the billing. You want more of what we got there, just from a toughness standpoint, physicality, the ability to get it done on the field with the Mauanoa twins. You want to keep that pipeline going. There's tight family bonds, tight blood bonds with these players, and you want to keep it rolling. Crystal ball, S.J. Alafatuli.
Yeah, look, there's limited film on him out there, right, D? So it's going to be hard to kind of break down his game in full, but as we see, and we'll continue to see, the Mauanoa influence is for real. I think Joe Salavea deserves a lot of credit as well. He's a guy who connects with them, and obviously having his background. He played in the NFL. He has a track record of doing very well. Recruiting is there. So, I mean, I'll pull a picture here of him next to Francis Mauanoa, and obviously he's an interior lineman, so he doesn't have the same height as him, but he's built, man. And I talk about proportions with offensive linemen a lot. He really looks like your prototypical interior offensive lineman.
Yeah, particularly center. I think he's a center only, but exactly what you want with a center as far as being a leader of a great offensive line. Bishop Gorman, that line was pushing around the best teams in the country. You saw Elijah Lawton running for tons of yards behind that offensive line. There you see him with Francis Mauanoa. Again, you see the size difference. He's a center. Francis Mauanoa, clearly a big-time offensive tackle, but that's what you want. You want prototypes at the particular positions, center all day, tested off the charts athletically. Again, Bishop Gorman, as good as it gets in the country. This player, just look at the rankings, 55 nationally, according to 247, 77th on the composite nationally. That's all players. Top 3 interior offensive linemen, no matter who you ask, top center in the country, big time player from a program that has been good to Miami. It's a program you want to be at because they're disciplined and they win, well-coached, tough kids. And you saw with the picture with Francis, these guys are tight. They're all, it's like Cubans. We all have cousins. Like everybody's got a cousin, second cousin. Samoans are the same way. Everybody's cousins with each other. So you start adding a few, they go to the NFL. It gives you a sustainable long-term pipeline. Keep the whole bloodline together. It's like when The Rock was with Roman Reigns, they showed the tree at WWE of the wrestlers from the same family, and it was like, 100 branches. By the way, R.I.P. Sika from the Wild Samoans. I know WWE Hall of Famer, passed away yesterday. But anyways, enough with the wrestling talk. But it's hand in hand. The point is, these guys are all family. They're all blood. They're all studs. Get that one to the NFL like a Penei Sewell, and you get credibility with multiple. And you're going to be in, they also, these, again, if kids, they play football. It's just, this is a group you want to get in with long-term. And if you get the number 1 5-star 1 year, there's the number 1 center in the country 2 years later. Clearly you saw from the picture, there's a connection there. I wish I had more film to break it down, but, flexible, strong. There's video of him bench pressing 225 easily with perfect form, tested off the charts athletically at the Under Armour camps. There he is with the bench press. Nice form.
Look at
there.
him touching the chest, man. I forget who it was. We were giving him a hard time the other day with the bench press, but that's how those count in the NFL Combine right there.
Yeah, 100%. And again, that's just a strength aspect. He's very flexible. You just see from his stance. He's very well coached and tough. I mean, you just know that from where he's coming from. But then the athletic markers were all there at the UC report keeps that confidential. But he tested in the highest percentiles of offensive line athleticism, which is why he is such a highly ranked player. Michigan in the mix, Nebraska in the mix. Dominic Raiola is there. His son Dylan, the quarterback, of course. So they're trying to get into that same pipeline. But Miami gets a crystal ball from both Tom Loy, national recruiting writer, and Blair Angula, who's out there on the West Coast and has been doing a great job in that region forever. Those are two guys that you want, national names, not Miami names, that you want on the side of the crystal ball. Gabby, I expect him to follow. I will have an update on all these players for Canes Connection subscribers tomorrow, Thursday. If you're a Canes Connection member signing up promo code CIS to Miami's official NIL collective, you will get a link to that live Q&A on Thursday, and I'll have the freshest info there. And then I'll also update everybody here on the bank with anything I can say in a public setting. That will be non-public, and I'll have a little more on the non-public setting for Canes Connection members, promo code CIS when you sign up, 20% off first month. But I'll also have an update for you guys on CanesInSight on Friday. But I expect that the news will be confirmed that we are in a great position for SJ Alafetuli. And I got to say, the recruiters are up and down. Talking to people, at one point they thought they were good. Then it kind of faded a little bit. Now they think they're good again. So we'll see, but the visits are all done. So I think Miami being in a strong position after the OVs tells you they have a real good shot to add this player. And look, Miami's offensive line class has a lot of very promising body types, athletes. We've talked about them, but sleepers, with Demetrius Campbell, Jaden Wilkerson, TK Mo. These are guys that have the tools and they're recruited by P4 teams, but they're not the 5-star, 4-star, top 100 players. This guy is. So you put him in the center with these big bodies and you're starting to get what looks like a really nice offensive line class.
And D, we're talking about the Polynesian connection here, but what about the Bishop Gorman pipeline as well? Obviously Miami's done very well there in recent years, and it would be very nice to keep that pipeline going.
Yeah, it's one of those things where when someone that is like you has success somewhere else, it is easier to recruit that player. I'll give you some different examples. Penei Sewell at Oregon has success, allows Miami to recruit Francis Mauigoa to the whole other side of the country, right? Because of the proven prototype. Francis Mauigoa says, I want to be Penei Sewell. Well, we coached him. It allows you not only to win that recruiting battle, but to win a very important battle 4 years later, right? With respect to Bishop Gorman, you landed Brevin Jordan from there. Huge recruiting win for Todd Hartley at the time for Miami. Now when you recruit Elijah Lofton, hey, they call you mini Brevin over there young Brevin over there in Las Vegas. Gorman, come over here to Miami, has an unbelievable spring. So when you start getting guys like that, it allows you to get others. The classic example from the other side of it is Alabama. When they got Amari Cooper, what'd they do? Hey, Calvin Ridley, you want to be the next Amari Cooper? Go from South Florida to Alabama. And it kept going on. Jerry Jeudy, same thing. So you want to have that going in your direction. And I think getting a guy like this has multiple impacts beyond just getting a top 100 player that can be your center for 3 years before going to the NFL.
Kind of unrelated, D, but this reminds me of when Urban Meyer used the next Percy Harvin for about 10 plus years. So
it's a real thing. It's a real thing. So what do you want to get in with? You want to get in with, again, this community of football players, which is sprawling and interconnected from a Polynesian Samoan side. And then a program, Bishop Gorman, that to me is probably the best program in the nation when you talk about how those players perform on a field in high school. They are not St. Thomas as far as the amount of prospects they have, not IMG in terms of the amount of prospects they have, but they pretty much beat everybody and dominate teams physically. You saw Elijah Lofton, again, who's now at the Miami Hurricanes as a tight end / running back, running all over Central, running all over Chaminade, running all over teams from all over the country. And who's blocking for him? SJ Alafetuli with a very, very good coaching staff, making sure that everybody was doing what they needed to do. and playing with toughness, IQ, and of course showing up on game day. So can't get enough of those guys. Can't get enough top 100 players. Can't get enough polys. Can't get enough offensive linemen. This player, if Miami's to land him, again, this is just crystal balls. It's not guaranteed, but I like where Miami's trending here, and I'll have more information on this later in the week, straight from the sources.
One more play here. I caught when we first played the highlights, but I'm going to run it again, and you tell me if my eyes deceive me. But it looks like he's lined up in the backfield here. It's this next play, and you can see his movement. You see him get out there into space. And look at him get downfield to the second and third level there. But to me, I mean, that he's not in the backfield there. I think he's there at center. But man, I wish we had more tape like that we could look at, because they probably do that a lot there.
Yeah, wow. He blocked like 6 guys on that play, jumping over the pile. You see the athleticism. One thing I was told on SJ was Miami loved him based on the film, based on what they knew about him before his senior year, which obviously hasn't started yet, but he had the spring for the senior year here, the 24 season spring practice. They get out there for spring, rising senior, get a look at him. And they thought he was one of the best players they saw all spring. So he was already high up. I mentioned this with a few guys that they're evaluating. Jared Pringle for the running back commit, one of these, Luke Nickel, Luka Gilbert, some guys that Miami saw that they already liked, but then they saw him in spring and they said, whoa, these guys are even better than we thought. And we thought they were really good before. So SJ was one of those. I was told he might've been the best player Miami saw all spring. So major.
You see those feet, man. You see those feet when he lined up in the backfield there. That has center written all over it. And I'm excited about the possibility of him being a Cane.
And that's a position that you've seen guys start early in their careers. Remember Connor Liu started as a freshman for Auburn, somebody that Miami thought was going to be their center of the future, lost out to Auburn at the last second there a couple of years ago. So that's a position where if you're good, you can play as a true freshman. Miami has a senior center right now with Zach Carpenter, has some younger players there, but could really use that true center of the future, that long-term guy for the NFL. It won't be handed to him, but he'll have an opportunity if he comes to Miami to win that job year one.
Not the only crystal ball that Miami received yesterday, D, as they keep rolling in here. And this is a guy, like you said at the start of the show, Miami's been all over for a while.
Yeah, Herbert Scroggins, defensive end out of Savannah. He is from Benedictine Military Prep, listed at 6'2", 235. I'm told he's closer to 6'3", 235. 29th ranked edge in the country, based on that borderline of 3 or 4 star. I think the height, not having the true height on him is hurting him. Once they see him in his senior year and see how big he is, I think he'll get solid in that 4-star range. Being recruited like a 4-star, Tennessee visit, Auburn visit, UNC. A lot of people thought he was headed to Auburn. Miami, with this latest official visit, made a huge run. There's a player who's very close with Walter Mathis, a defensive tackle target, and Elijah Griffin, one of the best players in the entire nation, right at the tippy top of Miami's board, defensive tackle, all from Savannah. Scroggins is a name that if you listen to this podcast, we've been talking about him for 3 months as a major Miami priority. No one was talking about Scroggins, but Miami was telling people, hey, this is the guy. And you watch the film, look at the bend, you look at the acceleration. He's got the right body type. We've talked a bunch about blocking kicks being an indicator. Here you go. Look at the burst. Boom.
Arms look really long too.
Arms look long. He is playing.
You talked about the height, D, and sorry to cut you off, but in my experience dealing with NFL evaluations, arm length at that position is more important than height, especially as an edge rusher where, he's going to be standing up. They do it with him a lot there, but you see the burst. And I mean, again, to be able to use those long arms to keep the bigger defensive lineman off you once he really learns that technique, should be a scary sight.
Yeah, and you see pictures of the guy. He definitely looks the part as far as his just the defensive end body type, like you mentioned. The film is outstanding. The get off, again, I like to see who's first off the line. Pretty easy to see him burst off the line there. He can bend, he gets under guys, relentless motor, goes and gets it. Also a very good basketball player. His rebounding numbers depends who you ask. He told Tom Lemming he's averaging 13 a game. Max Press, which is a little dicey sometimes on the stats, had him closer to 6 in limited minutes. But this guy's clearly a rebounder for his basketball team. You see him there jumping up and blocking the blocking the pass. And then the running back caught it and he went and tackled him. You see the motor, the awareness. This is somebody that Jason Taylor absolutely loves. He thinks this is one of the top players in the country. This is by no means like a package deal to try to get Elijah Griffin. That's a nice, relationship that you could use with Elijah Griffin later on. But this is a guy that Miami really, really prioritized. I think he felt the prioritization. A lot of people thought he was going to Auburn. That was the crystal ball. Everything was flowing in Auburn's direction. He's from Savannah, but Miami really knocked it out the park with their last visit. Jason Taylor put on the pressure, and this guy's just it's funny. Herbert Scroggins, man, he sounds like a third baseman for the Kansas City Monarchs back in the 1920s. But no nonsense guy, goes to military school, so you like that. And totally a 4.0 student. So all these kind of things that you look for: blocking kicks, multi-sport. The motor, the good grades, the long arms, just a lot of traits that you really like to see in somebody that can line up for you and improve a position that Miami's really, really recruited well the last couple of years at defensive end.
Yeah, and we've talked about it with a few of these edge rushers and guys who have inside-outside versatility, but with these younger defensive linemen, football IQ is not really something we talk about at that position necessarily. You hear a lot at linebacker, right? But you see him really trying to read some of these plays. He's not just trying to get upfield. I mean, he's really paying attention to where the ball is at, and I mean, he's patient as well. So to me, he's got all the tools.
Yeah, and look, sometimes you have to make excuses for players not having great stats, and you say, look at the tools, you coach them up. It's much nicer when you could see the production and you have these long highlight reels with a lot of plays being made. I think you saw that with Herbert Scroggins. Yesterday, we talked about Jarquez Carter, who received a crystal ball to the Miami Hurricanes from Newberry, rated in a similar way of he's a 4-star, but right on that 4-star, 3-star border, but very productive players. So you like to see the production, like you mentioned, Pete, the ball awareness, being able to locate the ball instead of just
there. Look at that right there.
It is.
In the read option there. So
yeah, played the pitch, did exactly his job, and finished the play. That's what you want to see. Yes, it's nice when sometimes these guys are, and this guy is twitched up. The physical is not a problem with him, but sometimes you only have the physical and you say, well, if we can coach this guy up and get him going in the right direction. It's not always that easy. Some of these guys, they're not wired that way. This guy is wired that way, and he has the physical tools, which is why Jason Taylor, who knows a little bit about playing defensive end, rushing the passer, first ballot Hall of Famer, has identified this particular player, Herbert Scroggins, as a guy that he wants. This is one of his guys in this recruiting class.
And here's the tweet we were talking about, D, where he told Tom Lemming and that he averaged 13 rebounds a game. And look, Max Preps, I don't necessarily trust that. This tweet is pretty recent, from a couple months ago here. So maybe it was a midseason thing. Maybe Max Preps didn't have their stats updated. That's what we're going to go with. But you got to have a motor to rebound like that if it is in fact true. But hopefully we can connect with Herbert one day and ask him about that, because you know how we love our basketball guys.
Oh yeah, and look, he's on the court. There's no question. He's a multi-sport athlete. 4.0, that matters to me even more than the grade, because defensive linemen, it's such a rare position in terms of the combination of the size and the athleticism that you make a lot of excuses for a lot of stuff. Right. You kind of give certain passes with defensive line because it's such a scarce position, or scarce. I always pronounce that word wrong. Whatever. That's the Cuban pronunciation. It's such a rare position to have the combination of the size and the athleticism at that spot. So you make a lot of excuses for character. You make a lot of excuses for intelligence. You make a lot of excuses. This is a guy who you don't have to make excuses for his grades, his production, or any of that, which is nice to see. Armando Blunt, another one, recent example of that. That's what you want. You want smart, athletic, tough, long arms, bendy, productive, high motor. A lot of boxes being checked by Herbert Scroggins, which is why he's such a major target for the Miami Hurricanes.
All right, we're going to end it on this last note here, D, which is pretty significant news. Yesterday, the NCAA approved pretty much unlimited coaches. So we understand there's been a limit on-field coaches forever in the NCAA. And now essentially any of these quality control guys, they can coach them up, because when there was a misunderstanding of what that means, it's literally that you can actually coach them up. You're not just there providing motivation and doing what the real position coach needs you to do out there with the guys, but they can actually get in there and work with these guys now.
Yeah, and there's a few things here. So the concern from some of the smaller schools is, hey, the big schools are just going to have a giant budget of coaches, and we can't compete with that. Look, at the end of the day, I think the NCAA was realistic, and they're saying there's a diminishing returns with coaches. You can't. It's not just, hey, I have 100 coaches, I'm going to be a better team. That's number one. Number two is everybody was breaking this rule anyways. I'm not saying Miami was. Miami was the only one doing it right? But everybody else was breaking this rule. You can't enforce it. So
too much gray area. Yeah.
Yeah. So just being realistic, I think, is a smart thing for NCAA to do. They're so high and mighty. They're so stupid in so many things they do. It's nice that they're realistic for a change. I know the coaches really push for this. But it was, sometimes again, they're not all created equal. You have big coaches fighting with G5 coaches on it. But ultimately, I think certainly it benefits a team like Miami, which has talented off-field guys like Edwin Pata, Coach Cooney. I mean, elite guys off the field. We saw some of this with DVD and Jamil Adai when Cormani McLean wanted to be coached by DVD. Remember that whole fiasco? So that all goes away. Miami gets their talented support staff on the field with no reservations. What's interesting to me is you still have limitations on who can recruit. You can only send 11 guys, which is your 10 assistants plus your head coach on the road, but you can designate who it is. So one thing to think about, and I don't know the ins and outs of this, but let's say you're Miami and you say, listen, I want this defensive line coach that I knew from Buffalo Bills who just got fired because the head coach got fired. And he's a graybeard. He doesn't want to do anything with recruiting, doesn't want to do anything with NIL, but this guy can really coach D-line. All right, come down. You're the D-line coach, but we're not even going to send you on the road. We're going to send the assistant D-line coach who's a young guy who can connect, who's energetic, as it's maybe a young family or no family, and he can go out there and recruit. That's your designated recruiter. So you have a nice pairing there that makes a lot of sense. That's one thing that popped on my mind. Can Miami be doing stuff like that? I'm sure other schools are thinking the same thing as far as an arrangement for the future where you get a coach that doesn't want to recruit at all, but is a great teacher. Another coach who obviously he's got coaching talent as well, but he maybe have more capacity to recruit. And you send him out there, even though he's not the defensive line coach that's doing the primary instruction. Something to keep an eye on at all positions. Also, something to watch just from a Miami standpoint. And I have no info on this at all. Zeros. Don't like aggregate this like I am reporting anything because I really don't know. What I do know is that I've seen Coach Ogeron around Miami practices all the time. His sons are on staff. They are now going to have more on-field ability because of this rule. He's there. He stayed in the back because of these rules, maybe because he doesn't want to coach, but he's there. You could tell he has an interest in the program. I see him, I live in Miami Beach. When I go to work out at like 6:30 a.m., pretty early, I think, this guy's already sitting there in a full sweat, done with his workout as the sun's coming up on Sunset Harbor. Guy's tanner than me and anyone in my family. He's getting definitely his beach time in Miami Beach, but the guy's still going at it pretty hard. And he's at practice. Maybe he wants to coach without having to recruit off campus and go through that grind. Something to keep an eye on going forward. I'm just saying those kind of things are now more possible with the flexibility provided by these rule changes.
Yeah, I think it's long overdue, but like you said, it's nice to see the NCAA kind of bending a little bit here on this one.
And just a couple more rule changes. Pete, feel free to chime in because you're the one that actually sent me this text. Yeah. With the calendar, a lot of tension with the coaches because some of the rules are more suited towards the old calendar, with February being a big important day, with the college football playoff being how it used to be. So the schedule was kind of a mess. So what you now have is basically more dead periods where you have limitations on how you can deal with recruits in July, the base of the month of July and the month of December, right? And an earlier signing period in December. So now December is more reserved for preparing for the playoffs, preparing for the bowl games. July, more time to prepare for the season. Also probably get some vacations in there. And you don't have to worry about other schools recruiting in a certain way because they are everybody has the same restrictions. January, which used to be more of a quiet time because you want recruits to have some time to make their minds up before the old signing day in February. That is now a more free time for full-on recruiting. So January, like a lot of the recruiting gets funneled to January and is being pulled out of July and December. That's basically what the rule does. And then the cannabis rule, Pete, you talked to me about this. I know you dealt with this issue as an agent.
Well, because look, I think you've seen kind of like over the last few years, a lot of these like drug tests in terms of internal team stuff, you don't see the suspensions with that anymore. Maybe it kind of gets swept under the rug. Maybe a guy misses some time, but you don't see that as prevalent. The NCAA was still, however, testing for it, right? Because the NCAA does random drug tests normally once a year. But if you fail one of those tests, at least before, you were gone for the whole year. I don't know if you remember the Mitch McGarry from Michigan, the center, a few years back. He failed a drug test. He was going to come back for another year of eligibility, and he ended up just declaring because he was going to be suspended the entire year, right? So I don't know. I think Coach Prime might have some more recruiting ammo now.
Yeah, I think it's funny. It's the modern era college football, right? And I think
and the world.
I think, to me, let's focus on the important things and let's be realistic about the things that are already happening. There's enough stuff to worry about. Same thing as the coaches on the field. It's happening anyways. Why are you wasting your resources on it? NCAA should be worried about staying alive, right? They got bigger fish to fry than this kind of issue. Certainly the coaches on the field, which we talked about, the recruiting calendar stuff makes sense. So these are just common sense to me changes for the NCAA as they focus for the big picture stuff. NCAA used to burn through hundreds of thousands of dollars.
No pun intended.
Breaking rules. Yeah. Breaking rules about Benihana's receipts for the Miami Hurricanes when, big things are happening behind them and they maybe close their eyes to it. We talked about that on the podcast. At least now they're focusing more on big things as opposed to the things that are already happening and are not a big deal. We'll see if they last because a lot of the big things are threatening their very existence. So we'll see how that plays out. But at least in the short term, focus on those things. Don't waste their time with stuff like this.
For sure. And again, remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel. Believe we'll be going live tomorrow, D. I'm not 100% sure about that, but of course we do a live show usually once a week here, and then we have our daily CanesInsight daily show Monday through Friday. We do the instant reactions to the commits, and we're going to just keep it rolling here throughout the summer. Almost. I don't want to say almost, but the countdown's on, man. We're getting closer to the season here. Day by day, D.
And we're in the heart of recruiting season. We're in commitment season. So stay tuned for Canes Insight for all the commitments, CanesInsight.com forums. We'll have all that info for you in real time as fast as it comes in on the CanesInsight.com free forum, 6.9 million posts and counting. Shout out to Caneswear and Caneswear.com. If you're a Florida Panthers fan and you want championship gear, or if you're just jumping on the bandwagon and you want to be ready for next season, Caneswear.com. Don't let the name fool you. They have all kinds of Panthers stuff. They are hardcore Panthers people. They have been, on top of this for years, and they have absolutely everything you need. Caneswear.com or the shop in Davie for that. And then I got my call tomorrow. If you want, look, SJ Alafatuli, Herbert Scroggins, you want to be beating out Michigan for a center. You want to be beating out Auburn and Tennessee for a defensive end. You need to play with the big boys. Miami has one of the best NIL collectives in the country. I think they've proven that, but the NIL collective is only as good as its members. Sign up today. Don't watch from the sidelines. Don't rely on others. Be part of the solution. CanesConnection.com, promo code CIS, get 20% off, and you'll have access to a private insider Zoom call tomorrow where I share non-public information. If you can't make it and provide your questions there, you can send them in advance so you can watch the recording. We'll get everything answered in a non-public fashion. It's going to be, direct from the sources right to you. Make sure you get the absolute latest on what's going to be a nice run of commitments here for the Canes. It's commitment season. It's just getting started. So stay tuned. Canes Insight, Canes Connection. Be on the inside, and let's enjoy the run.
Go Canes.
Go Canes.
Yeah, this an insight to the Canes, and we ain't playing no games. Joaquin said dominate, so that's what we do. Home of the legends and 7th floor crew, down in Miami where hurricanes brew. You here for the rumors, we bring you the news, cause it's all about the you. And nobody do it like CanesInsight. 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 It's CanesInsight.